In this video, we'll talk about conditionals, where you can compare different variables and use that to control your program flow. So in this program, we're going to ask someone their age, and if they're greater than or equal to 18, they're going to print that you're eligible to vote. So let's make them greater than or equal to 18, and it did say you are eligible to vote in the United States. So because the age is greater than 18, it printed this. But if the age is less than 18, it won't print that. It did not print anything. It just skipped this whole section, everything that's indented. So here's how you do it. You put a condition there. You put the colon just like you did with for loops and functions. And everything that's indented will be run if this is true. The other way you can compare a thing, let's say you wanted to find out if you're exactly 18, then you could say use a double equals to compare. In this case, when I put 17, it was not exactly equal to. So this right here, it says, is the age equal to 18? That's a comment, and it checks, and it's not true, so it evaluates to false. This checks if it's not 18 and the age is 17, so this one is true. It was not equal to 18, it was 17. So we have less than and less than or equal to. This is the one that I get the mistakes on most, is that it's so easy to just put one equal sign there if you want to find out if something is equal to something else. Okay, so those are the different conditionals you can use, but this is not really true. You can't vote in the United States unless you are registered. So I'm going to make a new variable, and I'm just going to tell it that it's true that someone is registered. So now we got to compare not only if they're over 18, but and if they're registered. So if this is true and this is true, then it'll print this statement. So let's run this and make the person, let's make them exactly 18. It says you are eligible to vote because you're the right age and you are registered. So you can set variables equal to true. But there's more to this. Like if you aren't quite 18, then maybe you could test for that case too. Or just say something like else. So if you're not 18, print, or you're not greater than or equal to 18. So now you have two cases, and let's make this, look at that, I forgot my colon. Let's make the person 17 years old, and it says now that you're too young to vote. Let's check another case as well. Let's say not just you're too young, but let's check if they can get a driver's license. So you could say, well, if you're not over 18, let's now check if you can get a driver's license, which you can get a permit anyway at the age of 16. You could put another if statement here. So if age is greater than or equal to 16, then you can say you can have a permit. But then you can imagine that we get ifs inside ifs inside ifs, and there's a better way to do this. Okay, so we're going to make a new statement here, new clause, that if you're above 18, you're registered to vote, but let's say if. That's else if, and so I'm going to say age is greater than or equal to 16. And then I can say that means you can get a learner's permit to get a license. So now it'll check to see if you can get a learner's permit. And now the only time it'll go down here is if you're too young for a permit to vote or too young to get a permit. So let's run this again. If you're 15, then you're too young to vote or drive. Okay, let's run this again. See if you're 17. Now you should be able to, it should say that that you can get a learner's permit. Okay, so we have an if, maybe an elif, which is else if. That means you're not, it didn't, if you met this, it goes here. And you notice after it printed you're eligible to vote, then it skips over the rest of the stuff and just continues on down here and prints that you're 17 years old. There are a couple gotchas if you are working with floating point numbers and other interesting types that we haven't talked about yet. Like here's an example where a is 1, b is 2. So we're going to test, is a plus b equal to 3? And it should print true, and it does. Okay. But watch what happens here. If I put 0.1, 0.2, and let's see if that's equal to 0.3. And of course it is, right? 1/10 and 2/10. Okay, here's the trouble. A and B they look like they're easy decimals. They are in base 10, but in base 2, they're not. So these have some round off error. Just like in decimal, if we have, if we try to write 0.33333 and we're going to see if that's equal to 1/3, no, it's not, because we rounded it off. The same thing happens with floating point numbers. So you have to be really careful about comparing floating point numbers. Comparing integers are fine. Let's do another example where I'm going to set a to be true and b to be false. You can combine lots of statements to be pretty complicated. Like this one's, this will compare, is a or b true? Well, yeah, one of them is true, so a is true. So this will print the value true. We're checking to see if a or b is true. And means, are both a and b true? And this is, no, they're not both true. One of them is false. So this one should say false. Let's run this again and see. This one says not a, which means a is true, but not a, it just flips it and makes it false. So not a is false. The other two we said a or b is true because a was true. Not a and b, no, both of them are not true, so that's false. Not a is false because it used to be true. And this, so you can combine and make as complicated as you want. This is a, which is true. A is true. Not b is true now because not false is true. So we have true and true. That one is true as well. There's an interesting way that you can use conditionals even if your variables are not true or false. Like for example, here's where a name is given, and this is going to check if there's a name. And a name is given, so it should print, my name is Inigo Montoya. Watch what happens if you have a blank string, just not given. Now, name is blank, and blank is the same thing as false. And this happens with numbers and as well. Like if you have an integer, 0 is equal to false, but anything else is equal to true. So you don't have to actually call things true and false. If something's 0 or blank, it is false.